On today's Locked On Senators, we'll reveal the first half of our fan-voted mock draft, including a surprise for the Ottawa Senators.
And we continue our 2024 NHL Draft Prospect Profiles with 3 forwards, including one that may get contentious.
We're into the top 50, but one of these top 10 picks is shining at the Memorial Cup. How much does Zayne Parekh make sense for the Sens? We'll get into all that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 1054 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available wherever you get your podcast. Also on YouTube, where we say hello. Remind you that a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. Been loving seeing the Go Sens Goes in the comments. Let's keep those rolling, and let's keep it rolling. Today is Monday, May 27th in Pilsy. It was Czechia over Switzerland at the World Championships, just like everybody predicted.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting finals for sure. But you know what, Ross? As much as obviously we bleed red and white, as much as we wanted to see the trio of Sens prospects on Team USA get farther than they did, I'm glad Czechia won. The host country, the people there all deserve it. Their fans are absolutely nuts. And I feel like that's the best vibes to have the host country win. Now, if this was the Olympics, different story. Not playing so nice and not so apologetic that Canada didn't
not so
make
Canadian.
It farther. Yeah, not so Canadian. Sorry, for not going farther. Olympics, different story, but congrats to Czechia, world champions.
Turns out that Lucas Dostal is more than a no-name goalie. 31 save shutout in the gold medal game. Guy's going to be a stud for the Anaheim Ducks going forward. A little poking fun at the Toronto Sun, who were chirping the Leafs, which we respect. But when they said they got shut out by a no-name goalie, yeah, Dostal, pretty good. And shout out to the home team. Huge celebrations all throughout Prague. And just like we drew it up, Dominic Kubalik, gold medalist at this event. If he could play the World Championships for 82 games a year, he might be a double IHF Hall of Famer. He might be. Led the tournament scoring last year, then gets a gold medal this year. But enough's enough. We'll regroup on the international play once we get to the Four Nations, Pilsy, because we already saw a step up in the quality of competition, the guys who went over there. So that was fun to see, but it's time to not be apart from the top end guys who are still chasing these Stanley Cups and our Stanley Cup playoffs over here in North America. Maybe a quick thought on that. We're recording a little bit earlier, so Rangers are ongoing right now. Game 3 against the Cats, and then we had Dallas take a 2-1 lead over Edmonton last night. So where are you at? Or sorry, 1-1. They tied up the series 1-1. So that series is going back to Edmonton. Where are you at? You still thinking you're confident with your pre-series picks?
Yeah, I still got Dallas. I still got the Rangers. Lafreniere is having himself one heck of a game. We're midway through it. It's 4-2 in the third as we're recording this. But I think the Rangers have what it takes. Not to say that the Panthers don't. They did it last year all the way to the Cup final with a similar, if not better, team this season. But it just feels like this is the Rangers' year. And then the Dallas Stars have been one of the most complete teams throughout the entire year with consistency, and they've got the depth. So I see those two making it to the finals, but lots of hockey to be played here. It's not set in stone yet.
No, it's been a great Stanley Cup playoffs, but I found myself watching the Memorial Cup over it the other night. It was the first game of the tournament, and Saginaw was playing Moose Jaw. And I knew I was interested in watching Zayne Parekh play, but I didn't think I would be so encapsulated by it because he put on a show. 2 points in the first period, adds another one in the second. This guy is as advertised offensively. And I mean, again, junior hockey, so you're trying to project versus higher skill. A little lackadaisical at times defensively, sure. But this guy, he just produces points at such an elite level.
Now, Ross, I know you've never had Zayne Parekh as your top target or even some of your top targets. So now that you got a better viewing on him, has that changed your rankings here for who you're looking at for 7th overall?
Not yet.
Okay.
Let's finish the tournament up. Let's get the scouting combine results in. Let's see how he does. The interview he did after the game with Julia Teixeira was awesome. I thought he came off very well in that interview. So I'm not against it. Look, there's like 13 to 15 guys who, if the Senators take it number 7, I'll convince myself it's best player available. But when you see a stat line, albeit in junior hockey, of 33 goals and 96 points in 66 games, and then you find out it's by a defenseman, and then you watch and he's dazzling as the way he was.
Yep.
It's a lot of talent to pass up. There's no question about that.
And that's the thing. Everybody's talking best player available. Well, I feel like best player available is kind of in the eye of the beholder, right? Like, it's not like it's clear and obvious. And it's like, okay, Zayne Parekh at number 7, if he's still around there, might be most talent available. Like, he has that dazzling skill, like you mentioned. But also, like you mentioned, what other people are cautioning about him is how translatable is that going to be to the NHL? And is he going to get exposed defensively? Sure, you put up all these points, but how's that going to look defensively? So it's one of those questions where are you going for pure talent and you're trying to hit a home run, or are you going for something more projectable and that you can see can be especially for a defenseman, a more stable style of game that they're going to develop and grow into more as they go on. So it's going to be fascinating to see the direction the Sens go.
Well, Zayne Parekh is just one of multiple draft-eligible defensemen in the Memorial Cup. Another, Sam Dickinson, left shot, but my goodness, he fits the bill of what you just mentioned as a two-way guy. June birthday, too. Lots of room to grow. You know he's in the development system with the London Knights, and they pump him out. Number 3 for the London Knights. Have that ever produced an NHLer before? Maybe an Ottawa Senator? Now, Dickinson's not throwing hips like Mark Mathot, but he does move the puck extremely well, got an assist in game 1 there. So I've been enjoying watching him. And the reason I bring him up as well is because we put up our mock draft and we went pick by pick. The poll is still open, so go check it out. Really appreciate all the engagement, especially, obviously, the Senators at number 7. Really, people having strong thoughts, but I actually really like the way it played out. Now, no spoilers. Coming Thursday and Friday, we'll dissect this entire draft. Go see it yourself at Sens Central. Pin tweet, thread, easy to find. But the unavailability of both Tisha Ginla 5 with Montreal and the fact that Zayne Parekh just barely went 6 to Utah in this exercise, it left Sens fans in a predicament I don't think a lot of them have ever thought about, where 2 potential top picks for me are taken right beforehand. So Sam Dickinson was the pick. We gave Silyev, who is still available, and 2 forwards. I know people are scared of the left shots, Pilsy, but I would love a guy like Sam Dickinson, two-way defenseman, a little bit of Jake Sanderson in his game, and I like what I'm seeing from him in the early going of our scouting process.
Yeah, definitely, Ross. I agree with you. I didn't really see a world where at 7, the Sens wouldn't have an option of Tisha Ginla or Zayne Parekh. Like, I thought it was going to come down to, all right, whichever one of those guys is left, we'll take the swing on there. Like you mentioned, neither of those guys left. Dickinson, I haven't done my full deep dive on him, so I'm going to reserve a lot of judgment. But from what I've seen, heard, read, it seems like he is a guy that has a lot of projectable attributes already and is going to be a well-rounded defenseman that I think can develop really nicely. So if you're the Sens and you're like, at 7, let's make sure we get a guy. Let's not take a swing. Let's grab a guy and be confident that he's got a high floor. I think Dickinson is definitely one of those guys. And he's got the size already too, which, that's a big, big advantage for a young defenseman.
6'3", 195 for Sam Dickinson. Zayne Parekh, 6 foot, 181. Let us know in the comments if it comes down to Zayne Parekh, right shot, or Sam Dickinson, left shot. Which one are you hoping the Senators go with in this upcoming draft? Bob McKenzie has Dickinson 7, Parekh 9. So it's right in that range. So let us know in the comments. Looking forward to reading that. Just a quick programming note. Why are we recording this night before? If you're watching on YouTube, my shelving unit very empty.
Did you get robbed, Ross? What's going on here? There's a Sens fan in Winnipeg that just hit at the perfect time and got all that memorabilia.
Yeah, it must have been some Russian, saw the Igor Sokolov signature on the stick and was like, I need that. No, I'm in transit. The movers are coming bright and early, so made sure to clear this thing out. And yeah, new studio coming next week, but doesn't put a wrench in our show, Pilsy. We'll have Tuesday's episode out bright and early as well. Another Monday recording for that. So that's peeling the curtain back. Now let's go behind the curtain and put on a show. Draft rankings are up next. We're into the top 50. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's the best time of the year. It's playoff time. In the NBA and the NHL, both are in the conference finals. Only 4 teams left here, and baseball is in full swing in the regular season. And FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150. Whether you win or lose, you gotta love that. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. Like I mentioned, I've been mixing up some parlays, some futures, some prop bets. And what I like about FanDuel is they'll show you trending parlay bets. So if you're thinking, I want to mix in some parlays here, but I'm not quite sure which way I want to go, you can take a look at some examples that other people have done, and you're like, yep, I'm riding on that. So if you want to get riding with all the other users of FanDuel, you can do it at their app. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win for new customers. FanDuel, North America's #1 sportsbook.
All right, Pilsy. Let me remind the people, you can follow us on social media at Sens Central. Go vote in the mock draft. We will have the results for you later on this week. Locked On Senators. The Elite Prospects Draft Guide is dropping in just over a week, right in time for our top 32. We are inching ever so close to the Sphere in Las Vegas. We're actually just a month and 2 days away. June 28th, Pilsy. June 28th, 29th. From Las Vegas. Viva Las Vegas. We are going to have an absolute time. Boots on the ground at, what do you even want to call that? Like Dolan's Playground? Like that, what the Sphere is, we could do a whole episode on. I don't think I even understand it. It's like IMAX on crack?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's what Dolan was going for when he brought the idea to his marketing team. But I've seen clips of concerts there, and they've got the music going and like wild landscapes and stuff, and it looks so trippy and it looks so cool. I am so fascinated to see what the NHL's social team and design team comes up with, because they spend a pretty penny to be in there for the draft. So you better hope they're going to have some awesome video experiences for everyone there. Or at least I hope so, because we are going to have a blast at the Sphere for the draft.
Coming in at number 50 on the Locked On Senators 2024 draft rankings, we are going back to the US and TDP for left winger Max Plante. Grew up in a hockey family, and this guy's got the IQ that makes you believe it in a hurry.
Okay, Ross, I've got a lot of things I want to say on Max Plante here, but you've been holding out on me. You've had this tease dangling in a carrot over my head. I told you days before I like this kid. I had sent you articles. I was fired up, and you told me today there's something that
Red
you
flag.
need to bring up here. Red flag. I asked if it was because he's a Leaf fan. You denied that, so we're moving past that.
Worse.
What is going on here with Max
Well,
Plante? Let's just get this over with, and then we'll get into the player.
Any OG Sens fan, and Max, if you're watching this right now, he's about to laugh at us. It's not funny, dude. This broke my heart when I was 5 years old.
Oh, boy.
His dad is Derek Plante. That's like the first Senators heartbreak ever. Derek Plante, the defenseman for the Buffalo Sabres. He was a defensive defenseman. He scored the game-tying goal in the third period of Game 7 and then scored the overtime winner. And what does Max come out here and tell elite prospects? A lot of times to get myself pumped for a game, I watch my dad's Game 7 overtime winner. For shame. That hurts my heart. I legitimately, my jaw hit the floor. So I'm just not over it. That was my first hockey heartbreak. So Derek Plante's 2 goals in Game 7 in 1997. I'm not over. And I know you're probably cheering for the Sabres because Hasek was in net. So
wait, what year was that?
97. It was the Sens' first ever playoff series.
Oh, nice. No, I was not cheering for the Sabres at that point. That's tough. Yeah, Ross's biggest heartbreak. Max Plante is just eating cereal every morning, just watching that on his iPhone just to get the day started.
What's next? Chris Kunitz's kid going to be in the draft?
Yeah, or imagine a guy like Travis Green coaching the Sens. Can't have it. Can't have it. Okay, well, that's obviously terrible. And
because usually it's a good thing when you grow up in a hockey family. They show you the ropes, but I don't know. If this guy wants to follow in his dad's footsteps, I mean, the goal was in Buffalo. It was a road game for Ottawa. I had to do the research. I watched it again, and it hurt. Not as much as Jeff Friesen's goal in 2003, but this one was the first one. But that aside, this kid can play. He plays with pace. I loved the video that I watched on him. It seems like he's the kind of guy that's going to get a coach's trust because he's not going to do giveaways in bad spots, and he's always going to make the play that makes his teammates move, right? Like he wants a puck moving and feet moving all over the ice. So I could see him as a B game settling in as an energy winger that kills penalties and helps out at 5-on-5.
All right, Ross. Well, my bias towards him is not as strong as you, so I'm going to start this off with saying I'm very high on Max Plante, and I think we'll find a way to warp him into a Senators guy. I'm not concerned about that at all because, like you mentioned, Dad was a longtime pro, played in the NHL, DEL, Japan, and Swiss, and he's currently an assistant coach of the Chicago Blackhawks, and he was an assistant coach at Minnesota Duluth, where, guess what, Ross? You said, is Max going to follow in his dad's footsteps? Max is committed to the University of Minnesota Duluth. So he definitely has a lot of influence from his dad. In 51 games with the USNTDP, he had 15 goals, 46 assists, good for 61 points, so more than a point per game guy. His older brother, Zayne Parekh, is also a hockey player drafted by Pittsburgh. So this is a hockey family. I don't even know where to start with this kid, Ross. There's so much that I like about him. First off, that interview that you talked about, and I watched a couple of his video interviews. Really well-mannered kid, comfortable talking to the media, really polite guy, and it just seems like he's someone that lives and breathes hockey. Like, he was very knowledgeable about it, wanted to answer a lot of the questions, and as far as his play goes on the ice, he played on a line with Yzerman a lot of the time, not Stevie Yzerman, but Cole Yzerman. And he just has such high-level hockey IQ. When you can play with a sniper like Yzerman, you need someone that can set him up. And Plante is such an elite playmaker. I think it made Yzerman's job a lot easier. Not to take anything away from him, obviously, but he's the kind of guy that he's going to drive a line. And if you put a sniper on his line, he's going to be able to set that guy up, and it's going to be magic, just like it was this season at the USNTDP. So I'm a big fan of what Plante has to offer.
Plante is also the type of player that you can play, as you mentioned, with Eisman, with good players, but also in roles that are more defensive minded. So I like the versatility that Plante has. He's 5'11", 170 pounds, a February 06 birthday, comes in with an average rank of 46 on the dot, only ranked by 2 with an honorable mention from Bob McKenzie. Craig Button has him at 34th and Scott Wheeler at 58th. On their draft ranking. 61 points in 51 games with the US and TDP, plus 16 as well, and only took 8 minor penalties. So I think just a good player all along. I think he's going to be a player that might not have the ceiling of others in this range, but certainly I think there's less risk that the pick won't become a pro player.
Yeah, I'm with you on that for sure, Ross. I think that's a good way to put it. And the thing, like, how often do you find elite playmakers that are tough defensively? Like, his ability to read the play on defense is so good. He makes smart, responsible decisions with the puck in his own end. And he's a big part of that penalty kill over there with the program. And he talked about it in that interview I mentioned. He's like, I love killing penalties. Like, most of the time, you don't get junior prospects that like doing that, because they're like, if I'm killing penalties, I'm probably not on the power play. I'm not getting those offensive touches or opportunities to make highlights and impress the scouts. Not for Max Plante. Like, he obviously is a guy from a hockey family, so he plays the game the right way, or at least is brought up to do that. So I don't see really any big red flags on this guy other than Ross's bias there. Now, a couple small things to note about Plante is scouts say he's got to get a little faster. So sometimes if guys on his line are speedsters, he's a step or two behind them. And he's an elite playmaker, but he's got to be a little more confident shooting the puck. You see only 15 goals there in 51 games, and he's playing top line minutes, like I mentioned. Sure, being an elite playmaker is a skill that he has, and it's important to do. But if you can't at least create the illusion that you're a dual threat, you're going to get guys just on a 2-on-1. They're just like, let's just fully block that pass and make this kid shoot. And if the goalie can see it, he can probably stop it. So he's got to work on being a better shooter so that his ability to be a playmaker will be opened up and guys aren't cheating on that pass.
That is Max Plante at 50 on our draft ranking. Sounds like could be a 5-star guy though, Pillsy. What do you have for the Sens stars?
Not a 5-star guy, Ross. Typically, you got to be top echelon to get 5 stars. I think I only handed out 2 or 3 last time we did our rankings, so not 5 stars, but not taking anything away from him. I'm giving Max Plante 4 stars, Ross. I even put in my notes, I think if they went for him at 39, I think it'd be a bit of a reach, but I think he's going to be a good NHLer in the long run. So if they're comfortable with the swings they take with their first-round picks, and they're like, all right, let's get a safe, projectable guy that can be a good culture guy in our prospect pool, I'm down for Max Plante at 39.
And what I'll start doing here as we continue counting down is I'm doing my order as we go. So I'll give you the range of guys who I have comparable, not stylistically, but in terms of the upside where I would draft them. So I have Max Plante just ahead of Adam Yeko and John Mustard, and just behind guys like Julius Miettinen. But there's lots to like for Max Plante, especially for a team with a deep prospect pool.
But keep in mind, Ross, as you're doing this, you haven't seen prospects we haven't covered yet. So at the time that we're doing this, with the prospects that we've already covered, that's what Ross has them.
And to check out all of our draft profiles, go view it on YouTube. All right, on the other side, a pair of offensive juggernauts we'll discuss next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. Pillsy. Want to remind everyone they can get Locked On Senators wherever you get podcasts. We are also free and available on YouTube. Be a friend, tell a friend, steal your partner's phone, your parents' phone, you're out for dinner. Bang! You can gift them one subscription free of charge to Locked On Senators. And you can also leave a review wherever you get your podcast. Those do help the show grow. We are currently counting down our top 80 draft prospects. It's been a lot of fun. It's been educational. I hope you enjoy. And I do feel for people like Pat who write in and said, Pat's an everyday Sens Central citizen. And Pat goes, boys, I just want to hear NHL chatter. We hear you. And later next week, we will have our top free agent targets. We'll do one show on forwards, one show on defensemen. And dare we look at the goalie market? Yeah, don't mind if I do.
Yeah, and the thing is, we're now in year 5 of this, Ross. So if you've been following go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, if you've been following along with the show, you kind of have an idea that we have the cyclical calendar that we go through. So we're at the point in the calendar where we're doing draft profiles. Then we're going to get into free agent targets. Then once free agency hits, we're going to cover the moves the Sens make. And then after that, we do our organizational value rankings. Am I missing anything?
Interview season in July and August.
And Ross, something I think people really enjoyed last year, and we had a lot of fun doing it. We're going to bring back, or at least I hope so. I hope I'm not speaking out of term. Our Ring of Honor series with our good buddy at Leams Martian. Usually we kick those up in July and August, though, when things have slowed down a little bit. So we got lots of fun stuff planned here. And if you're hoping for the NHL chatter that will come along, we're in our draft mode right now. It's draft season.
And not only that, but I should also point out that Steve had a great idea on the YouTube comments. Go comment on YouTube, anything you'd like to see.
Yeah,
he wants us to go back.
Your thoughts, definitely.
He wants us to go back 5 years to 2020 and look what our pre-draft rankings were for that. So why don't we do that later on, maybe this week or next? Because I think it'd be kind of fun. 5 years. That's what Craig Button always says. You can't judge a draft until 5 years later. Well, October 2020.
I hope I still have mine. I think I save them every year, so I hope.
No, we have. I'm pretty sure it's in our lineup.
Oh, okay. Yes, we do.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Coming in at number 49 on our Locked On Senators 2024 NHL Draft Rankings, we're going to the Western Hockey League, where we find Miguel Marques with the Lethbridge Hurricanes. Now, let's call a spade a spade.
Oh,
the Hurricanes were a bad team this year. They were not good. But Miguel Marques, as a 17-year-old, led the team in scoring with 74 points. How much does that tell you about the character and drive of a young player?
Yeah, definitely. He's a guy that was driven this season, Ross. He only got into 2 playoff games. He had 1 assist. I'm not sure what's up with that. Maybe he had an injury. I didn't get to the bottom of why he was only in 2 games there. But you look at the improvement on points here. Well, first off, last season, 67 games, 28 goals, 46 assists for 74 points. Ross mentioned led the team in points and led the team in power play points. 22 of his 74 points were on the man advantage. So you love to see that. But what I want to highlight here is a 54-point improvement in 8 more games than his rookie season. So he played, 59 games in his rookie season, and he was able to get a 54-point improvement this year. Again, it's very typical progression for junior players when they first get into the junior league. They're slowly coming along, they're bottom 6 guys, and then their sophomore season, they get a boost in responsibility. They get an elevated role, more ice time, more mature. They fill out their body a little bit more so they can be more physical dominating out there. And with Marques, certainly that was the case.
He's a guy who always wants the puck. Do you notice that in all the clips? Even though he plays the wing, he seems like he drives the middle all the time. He's always looking to kind of weave with the centerman and create space. I think that would be his MO when he's out on the ice, is how can I create the most space out there, which is a good plan, while also being able to protect the puck well undersized, listed at 5'10", only 173 pounds for now. Now, he's a March birthday, about middle of the road for this draft class, but clearly his skating is great, among other things. But Elite Prospects has him ranked 20th on their list. He's down at 46 on McKean's, 57 on Wheeler, and 61 for Bob McKenzie. Undersized, offense first winger. Probably why NHL teams maybe not as ready to jump at the risk. as an outlet like Elite Prospects, who doesn't have to sell the pick to their owner when there might be players who fit that mold a little bit more in that range. But I think if you can get this guy end of the second round, start of the third round, that's a nice little swing for a guy who could pop off when surrounded with better players.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good range for him, Ross. And yeah, you talk about how he likes to have the puck. Our good buddy Scott Wheeler mentioned how he's the primary puck carrier on his line, and he's got the skill and confidence to attack and beat defenders one-on-one. So even though he's a good skater and he's got that speed, he could just go wide around guys. He's like, I'll just go right through you and make you look silly, and I'm going to attack the middle of that ice. So definitely that's his biggest attribute, in my opinion. And a lot of scouts are saying, even for his size, he's not a big guy. He's a physical player, and he'll surprise opponents. Like you're like a defender, if you chip the puck in his corner and he sees Marcus coming, shoulder check, oh, it's Marcus, little guy, he's probably not going to hit me that hard, and then boom, crushes you up against the board. So that's what you want to see from a guy like Marcus, who is going to add some offense while also punishing opponents physically.
A guy who I think at whatever level he's playing at, always going to have more assists than goals. Definitely more of a playmaker, but a sneaky decent shot. Few of the highlights I watched, he's ripping it high glove over goaltenders. And I'm excited to see, I think the next couple of years, our guy Scott Wheeler also saying like, look, he might lead the WHL in scoring or be a top point producer in the next couple of years. It's just how translatable is his skill? And that's going to have to be the question that an NHL team asks before taking a chance on Marcus. Now, in that playoff appearance, I'll call it, because he did only play those 2 games, took 4 minor penalties. Now, we know the heat turns up around playoffs, so maybe it was 4-on-4, whatever the case may be. But interesting to note, 1 assist, 8 PIMs in 2 games. A wild stat line there for Miguel Marques in the WHL. But looking forward to seeing what he becomes. He's a guy who, for my rankings, I have right at the bottom of the second round. He's in that range with Luke Misa, just behind Sam O'Reilly and Simon Zether. But I do think that if you take him anywhere between 60 and wherever he goes after that, you're looking at a high upside pick in that range.
Yeah, I think you're looking somewhere near the third round. I put in my notes, I think he gets drafted early third round. I think he's a really exciting prospect in junior, but it's going to be interesting to see if he's going to be able to keep that physical game at the small size, if his skating is going to hold up, if he's going to be able to carry the puck in different competition levels. Now, I'm not suggesting he's not going to be able to. I'm not sure if it's going to work out. And the Sens picking at 39, I don't think they should reach for him at that position. So I gave Marcus 3 out of 5 stars.
For more draft profiles, go check us out, Locked On Senators on YouTube. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, coming in at number 48 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings, right back to Ann Arbor and the U.S. National Team Development Program. It's a player whose stock may have risen faster and more consistently than anyone else this entire season. If you go from when Teddy Stiga came into this season, 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick, sorry, bud, you might not even hear your name on draft weekend. Now, it could be the first night. A team could fall in love that much with the play style of Teddy Stiga.
Ross, I don't think that's that crazy to say. I'm right there with you. I am very high on Stiga. In 61 games, he had 36 goals, 43 assists, good for 79 points. That's with the USNTDP, of course. And he's committed to Boston College. He's going to go there next season. And you talk about how he really climbed as the season went on. He finished 3rd on the team in points. So really, he was able to rack up the points there, 18 more points than games played. He had 11 points as assistant captain of Team USA in 7 games with them. I believe that's at the U18s. I think I omitted that from my notes. Yep, U18s. So you got to love that. That's a big reason why he got that big boost of scouts' attention and climbed up people's ranking. But there's so much to like about Stiga's game. And Ross, we kind of use the term jack of all trades usually with a lot of prospects. Now, I think that gets the connotation that he's just like meh or very vanilla. So I want to preface, I got Stiga as a jack of all trades, but I mean that as an utmost level of a compliment. Like, I think he's not
He's
a
a Teddy
little,
of all trades.
sure, a Teddy of all trades. He's not average at everything. He's not a little above average at everything. He's a major step above average in almost every category, it seems. Like, Ross, where do you see Stiga really shining on the ice?
The thing is, it just takes one team as well to jump and take him high. Because I think that the NHL sphere, it takes a lot longer because they're watching him for 2-3 years. They're the type, like they have to be convinced if they're like, wait, but there's these other guys that have been so much better for 2-3 years. Is this just a flash in the pan playing with good players at the program? But he's doing so many things that are translatable. The way that his motor never stops defensively, the way he has commitment in the defensive zone, as well as his ability up the ice with the puck and getting it to guys in great areas that they can move into a scoring position, or they can find him back with these little give and goes. He's a type of player that's always in the mix. Like, definitely not as physical as Ryan Leonard from last year, another Boston College guy who seems like he's probably going back too. So these guys could be teammates. But in terms of that dogged pursuit of the puck that I really just appreciate, I think he's going to be a favorite of the coaching staff at Boston College. A lot of turnover there with Gauthier out. Still no word on what's going on with Will Smith. I guess with Macklin Celebrini, you probably want those two to go together up to the NHL. So there's going to be a lot of turnover at Boston College. They're still going to get great goaltending with Jacob Fowler. And like, dude, imagine an NHL team comes. Two of our favorites now are Boston College commits that we've covered so far as we're counting up our prospect pool. Like Will Skahan on the back end, Teddy Stiga up front, both going to BC. Like, man, if a team could come out with both of those players, I think they'd be doing well. Literally two of our favorite players so far that we've done in the draft. So with Teddy Stiga, you asked me what he does great. And that's kind of where you said, like, hey, I bet you can't pick just one. But for me, it's how fast he's continually pushing up. I have a huge respect for people who, when the pressure's on in their draft year, take the biggest leap of their development so far. I think it's a great sign that it's consistent and that it's sustainable for the years to come. I would be excitedly surprised if he gets into the first round. Otherwise, like, he's a guy I'd be comfortable with the Sens taking at 39 for sure.
I would love if the Sens took him at 39, Ross. I even think I could talk myself into saying if they took him with that first rounder, it wouldn't be the worst thing either. I've got this guy as my top ranked forward so far, and I think for sure you nailed it with his biggest attribute is his motor. This guy plays with such pace. He's a skilled playmaker. He plays both sides of special teams, power play and penalty killing. He makes space for teammates with deception. He works hard and is a strong defender. I think if you talk to scouts from all 32 teams, they'd all have glowing reviews of Teddy Stiga.
Well, what I'd like to go with this year-over-year progression, I know we talked about this with other players like Miguel Marques comes to mind, but with Teddy Stiga last year in the USHL, so NTDP plays in the USHL as well as amongst themselves and other situations. In 27 games against the USHL last year, he had 12 points. Against the same competition now a year later, of course it's going to be better, but a 26-point improvement. 38 points in those 27 games against that same competition. So the production's there. The motor is sustained. Like the way he's doing it, you're not like, oh, wow. Like with Cole Eiserman, sometimes you watch him play and you're like, he didn't have a great game. Oh, 2-1. Like you're almost like wondering like, oh, that shot is that good. But with Stiga, it's just the little things that he does makes him a great player. So he is, if you haven't been able to figure it out from the way I'm talking about him so far, he is right up there with the top forwards that we've covered so far. He's above Julius Miettinen. He's above Max Plante. He's above Adam Yetko. He's for me the top forward that we've covered so far.
Ross, Teddy Stiga is my highest rated player so far. I'm giving him 4.5 stars out of 5. Yeah, like I mentioned, at 39, I would be ecstatic about this. If they decided to go for him with that first rounder, I wouldn't have an issue with that either. So let's keep an eye on this player because I think it's going to be very interesting to see where he ends up throughout this draft.
There's only one player that we've covered who I have ahead of him, Stian Solberg. That's it. It's the only player who I have ahead of Teddy Stiga right now, who in our draft rankings comes in at number 48. I don't even think I mentioned where everybody has him, so I'll wrap up with that. Elite prospects at 23.
Yep.
Scott Wheeler at 30. McKean's at 44. Craig Button at 48. And Bob McKenzie down at 68. So maybe the Sens get lucky. Maybe they can get him
That's
a
crazy.
little later.
He's so low for Bob. Wow.
Comes in with an average of 42.6. For more draft profiles, go check out Locked On Senators on YouTube. All right, Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Final thoughts for me is just enjoy all this hockey that's going on. It's kind of like Ross. We traded. It's like a relay race. The World Championship passed the baton onto the Mem Cup. Now we can focus on Mem Cup and some draft eligible players. So enjoy that. Enjoy the NHL playoffs, and we're getting closer and closer to this draft. And Ross, I think we're loving the Twitter experiment of having fan polled mock draft picks. So even though we're probably just going to cover the top 15 in the show, and we're going to break it down later on, I think we should just keep the Twitter fan poll going all the way through the first round.
Well, let's just do it. Well, if we're doing the first round, then we're going to do it until 39.
Well, let's just do all 7. Let's do, how many picks are there in a draft? Like 230? Let's do all of them.
All right. You
right
said
down
it.
to the bone.
We'll produce. Let us know in the comments who your favorite prospect profiles have been that we've covered so far. And is Derek Plante's heartbreaking goal against Ottawa a red flag for drafting his son? All jokes aside, hope you enjoyed today's show. Really appreciate you stopping by, subscribing, and being a friend and telling a friend. That's Brandon Piller. I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.